I grabbed these wood paint sticks and turned them into the most beautiful feature door. I removed the door handle from our travel trailer door and gave the door a light sand with 150 grit sandpaper. I wiped it clean with a damp rag and then dried it. I cut the wood paint sticks at different angles to get 3 different sized peaks. I didn't measure them, but they were all more than 45-degree angles. I taped them onto the door to check the layout. When I was happy with it, I added pencil marks on where each paint stick needed to be trimmed for length. I trimmed them with the miter saw, and then I used construction adhesive to glue them onto the door. I did the right and left side mountains. I left them to dry overnight, then I gave the wood paint sticks a light sand, wiped clean, and I applied a primer to the door. This is where it looks terrible, but you need to trust the process. I left the primer to dry, and then I gave it a light sand with 220 grit sandpaper, wiped clean, and applied a coat of paint. I did a second coat of paint after it dried and let it all dry overnight. I finished it off with a beautiful new doorknob, and that's how I used paint sticks to create the most beautiful mountain feature on our travel trailer door. I hope this inspires you to get creative with paint sticks too. The options are really endless.
We have an old hollow core door that needs a makeover. I wanted something simple and modern. First, I removed the door by placing a scrap wood underneath for support and unscrewing the hinges one by one. Make sure to have someone to hold the door when removing the last hinge to prevent it from tipping over. Once off, I marked the top and front for easy identification. Next, I removed the hinges completely and cleaned both sides with the degreaser. Then I lightly sanded the surface along the grain and wiped off the dust. Now for the fun part. I used these wooden slats meant for wrapping around poles. This piece is 12 inches wide and 8 feet long. I measured, cut the wrap to match the door's height, and glued it to the front with construction adhesive, keeping a 4-inch gap from the hinge side. To secure it, I also pin nailed it in place. Once set, I applied 1 coat of primer, first using a brush for the grooves, then a roller for the surface. For the final color, I chose this beautiful pastel green in satin finish. Same as primer, I used a brush to paint the grooves and then used a foam roller for the rest. I had to apply 3 even coats. I repeated the same steps on the other side of the door and the door frame. Once dry, I installed new hinges and propped the door back up with scrap wood before screwing it into place. Finally, I installed this chrome doorknob. And that's it! A simple upgrade turned an old door into a modern statement piece with just one material and a fresh coat of paint.
I found this door on Facebook Marketplace and it was finally time to put it to use. The first step was to remove my existing bathroom door. This was super easy to do by unscrewing the hinges from the door frame. Using an X-Acto knife, I scored the edges of the top door frame before using a hammer and chisel to totally remove the piece along with the 2 decorative corners. This was way easier to do than I thought. This step was necessary as my door frame was totally unlevel. After measuring my new door, I purchased a 1x8 to act as my header. After painting it white to match the existing trim, we leveled it off and bolted it to 4 studs. We needed to add the header because our studs were not equally spaced since this is an older home. If your studs are equally spaced, you can totally skip this step and bolt the track right to the wall. Securing the track was easy as the barn door kit I ordered from Amazon came with everything I needed. We didn't need to find the studs this time since we are using the header as one giant stud. After the track was hung, we drilled 4 holes into the top of the door, attached the hanging brackets, and secured them with the included bolts. The hardest part of this step was finding a drill bit big enough. We hung the door on the track and figured out where we wanted the stoppers positioned. These just slid onto the side of the rail and screwed in with the Allen key that was included in the set. To finish it off, I added some privacy cling film since this is a bathroom after all. This was super easy to use as it bonds to glass with just water. All I had to do was measure, cut, spray with water, and smooth out the bubbles with a credit card. It's super important to make sure that your window is really clean before applying the cling film. I just peeled it off the back, and as you can see, it instantly stuck to the window. My big tip is to use the credit card that you used to smooth out the bubbles for cutting off the excess around the edge. Just butt up the credit card to the edge of the window and drag your knife down the frame. This creates a super clean cut, and you're done. This DIY instantly gave my bathroom character and added a fun antique element to the space. I'm still on the hunt for cool antique handles for the door, but for now, it's easy to grab and push open and close as it is. I hope this inspired you to rethink your builder-grade bathroom doors.
I had this nice but not terribly modern or exciting door. It was originally white, and I thought painting it black would have a big impact, but it didn't really. I saw this 1/8 inch hardboard at Home Depot and had an idea. I purchased 2 of the 4x8 panels. I cut the board into strips that were uniform in width. I played around laying these out onto the door to find a pattern that I liked. I liked this angled pattern. I felt like the most difficult part of my door design was going to be properly working with the door handle. I didn't want to end up with half a board where the doorknob needed to go. I positioned the board and then used a Sharpie to draw where my door handle would go. I made sure this lined up with the existing doorknob hole in the door. Once I had this marked, I cut it out using a multi-tool. This thing really works great when you need to make a cut in the center of a piece like I needed to do here. Then I secured the doorknob piece in place. That set the angle for the rest of my pieces, and I used construction adhesive to secure those in place. I also went back with a small pin nailer to further secure them, but really the construction adhesive may have been enough. I just wanted to be sure. I allowed the adhesive to dry overnight. The next morning, using a little handheld saw, I cut around the door, getting rid of the overhanging pieces. I cut right along the door edge so that my boards wouldn't interfere with the proper functioning of the door at all. There were some spots that were a little rough from where they were cut with the saw, and so I gave a little light sanding over these areas just to make sure that the hardboard was smooth. My next step was painting. The paint color I used was called Urbane Bronze by Sherwin-Williams. It's kind of like a dark charcoal gray, and I've used it throughout this condo renovation that I'm working on. After my first coat of paint, I stood the door up, painted a second coat, and let it dry. Once the paint was dry, I added a new modern handle to go with the look of my new modern door. The new handle cost me $22 and fit into place perfectly. I rehung the door and admired my work.